and welcome to my car. So, something that really interests me about a lot of these ideas in regards to the mind-body relationship and in regards to, changing how we feel and having that change our external world in some way, comes back, unsurprisingly, to just our thinking. How we are thinking, basically. Not just what we are thinking, but how we are thinking. For me, there's a direct connection between a lot of the stuff I spoke about before I got into, like these law of attraction manifesting ideas in regards to like moving your body and how like if you move your body, physically get really active, for instance, or physically get really still, if you do that, it changes how you are thinking. For me, there's a direct connection between that and a lot of the stuff that these law of attraction or law of assumption teachers, whatever you want to call them, talk about. Like when I first read Neville, I was like, oh yeah, this is directly related. When he's talking about your imagination, he doesn't mean your imagination as like this fixed thing. He means your imagination as like your whole consciousness, right? And like you change your consciousness, for instance, by moving differently, moving your body differently. If you feel very stuck and emotionally anxious, if you move your body, you will feel differently. And Neville was very aware of this because of his background, as a dancer and as a performer. So he was very aware of that mind-body connection as well. And someone clearly who was very aware of this and aware of kind of the overwhelming influence that our imagination has on our body is Emil Kui. And this is, Kui, as I always say, in my opinion, is just the master at explaining this in regards to like how this mind-body stuff works in terms of changing how you see yourself, imagine yourself to be, and then seeing your body or your world change because of that. There's so many great, manifesting law of attraction teachers. Neville is certainly one of them. But Kui, a lot of the times, I think, is even clearer than Neville and the other great manifesting teachers. So I'm going to read this quote. I've read it before. It's an amazing observation. That is the kind of observation that you really can consider from multiple angles and think about and ponder how it affects you in your life directly. Kui said, every malady has a double aspect unless it is exclusively a mental one, meaning exclusively imaginal. Every malady has a double aspect. On every physical malady, a mental one grafts itself. If we give to the physical illness the coefficient 1, the mental illness may have the coefficient 1, 2, 10, 20, 50, 100, or more. In many cases, this mental coefficient may disappear instantly. And if it was very high, 100 for instance, while that of the physical affection is 1, only the latter remains. That is 1/100th of the total illness. That would generally be considered a miracle, yet there's nothing miraculous about it. That's a very profound observation by Kui. And if you think about it and how it relates to your own life, I think that you will realize how true it is. And this does not just have to do with physical symptoms, physical manifestations that you do not want. This also has to do with, your relationships, your financial situation. Every aspect of your life, there's this imaginal aspect that grafts onto like the physical reality of it, right? It's not just your body. And, a really clear example too is like, mental disturbances, like things that bother us mentally, anxiety, stress, which is what I'm always focusing on, for both myself and for, the clients I work with, is like, how can we learn to relax more? If we consider this carefully, and try to step back some to judge ourselves, not harshly, but objectively, we realize so much of this discomfort we might feel inwardly that makes us feel anxious or nervous or unworthy or ashamed. It's grafted on imaginally. It's not real. It's not real. Fear is a great example of this. Joseph Murphy's got that great quote about, like, a baby's born and, like, the only things that, like, a baby is fearful of is, like, a loud noise and falling, right? Because it's a survival mechanism. And then what we all do is we graft on all this other fear onto our lives, right? It's like, there's adaptive and like maladaptive fear. And most of the fear that we have, and a lot of us have a lot of fear, even if we don't want to admit it, right? And it's mainly maladaptive fear. It's grafted on. In a moment when you feel really good, really clear, really relaxed, where's that fear? It's gone. It's not there. It disappears. When you move your body, like I was talking about, get really active, where's that fear? All of a sudden it's gone, because it's not real. You imagined all of it. You graft it on. And we're so used to living our life a certain way, physically, holding our body in a certain way, responding and reacting to things in a certain way, that we believe our imagination. We believe that this anxiety is the stuck thing that's there, and we feel it in our chest or in our stomach or in our head or in our throat. And it's this thing that seems deeply wired. And in a way, it is deeply wired. But really, in my opinion, the large majority of that is grafted on and imaginal. And it's something that we're playing into constantly. When we really forget it for a moment, fully forget it for a moment, it almost totally disappears. It's not that different than, the quote-unquote cripple that, thinks they're paralyzed, and Kui, by doing these hypnotic suggestions with them and showing him these various experiments, and is then all of a sudden suddenly able to walk, because their, paralysis was imagined. Our anxiety, our stress, our shame is like that too. And that also goes for our anxiety, stress, and shame about relationships, about finances, about where we live, how we interact with people. All that stuff, it's grafted on imaginally. And it's usually grafted on imaginally in a way that we don't want, negatively. And so, part of this practice of implementing these principles, these manifesting and, law of attraction principles into our life, is just to become more aware of how much grafted on fear, shame, anxiety, all the difficult emotions, how much of that stuff is just grafted on. It's perfectly okay to feel those things. It's good to feel your feelings. I'm all about feeling your feelings, usually, right? It's good. But if you pay attention and observe yourself, you will realize it's our imagination that's running the show in regards to that stuff a lot of the time. We feel bad, we feel anxious, and we play into that anxiety. So instead of having that feeling of anxiety for 10 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, we feel that persistent feeling of anxiety for days on end, because we play into it constantly. We don't let it be there, feel it, and say, you know what, this is just my imagination going in some significant way. If this isn't entirely my imagination, at least a significant majority of it is. We relate to it too intensely, too intimately, and we don't step back. Every malady has a double aspect, unless it's exclusively a mental one. On every physical malady, a mental one grafts itself. If we give to the physical illness the coefficient 1, the mental illness may have the coefficient 1, 2, 10, 20, 50, 100, or more. In many cases, this mental coefficient may disappear instantly, and if it was very high, 100 for instance, while that of the physical affection is 1, only the latter remains. That is 1/100th of the total illness. That would generally be considered a miracle, yet there is nothing miraculous about it. Very profound insight by Emil Kui. If you would like help or coaching or have questions about this stuff, I can be reached at radicalcounselor.com. Until next time.